Get me the $1,500 phone or don't come to Christmas, my sister's boy texted. I replied. No seconds later, my sister added. You should feel lucky we even asked. I stayed silent. That night I made quiet moves. By 9 a.m., they were screaming. I don't know when exactly it happened, when being generous turned into being expected. Maybe it was the year I got promoted and offered to cover everyone's phone bills just until Courtney finished school. Or maybe it was when I bought Mom a new fridge after hers broke, and Courtney said, must be nice to be the favorite. Either way, somewhere along the way, I stopped being the sister and started being the family wallet. No thank yous, no checking in. Just endless little charges, favors, and unspoken rules, like how I pay for our family's Amazon Prime, the Netflix, the Spotify, the shared Costco membership, even Aiden's phone line, which I didn't even know was on my account until I checked the statement last month. And I kept going along with it because that's what I'd always done. But something snapped last December. It was the way Courtney rolled her eyes when I said I was thinking of staying in the city for Christmas instead of flying home. You don't even have a real family, she muttered, not even bothering to look up from her phone. I let that one sit for weeks. It dug in deep. Then 2 nights ago, I got a text from Aiden. I was at home making dinner, standing in my kitchen with a podcast playing in the background, and my phone buzzed. It said, get her the $1,500 phone she wants for Christmas. You can afford it. Don't come if you're not going to do something that simple. No hi. No how are you? Just that. I didn't respond. I waited, and sure enough, a few minutes later, Courtney chimed in. You should feel lucky we even ask. You've got no kids, no husband, no responsibilities. You live in that nice condo like some princess. It's one gift. And that was it. Not the money, not the phone, not even the entitlement. It was the sentence. You should feel lucky we even asked. That was the moment I knew they didn't see me as a person anymore, just a resource. Someone who existed to make their lives easier. And apparently, they thought they were doing me a favor by including me. So I didn't text back. I didn't fight. Instead, I got quiet, logged into every account I pay for. The Family Prime, Netflix, Spotify, Hulu, even the phone plan. One by one, I removed their names. No warning, no message, nothing dramatic, just silence. By 9 a.m. the next morning, my phone lit up with chaos. Courtney was screaming in text. Aiden tried calling twice, then left a voicemail asking if I was off my meds. My mom texted too, asking what happened because suddenly her music app and online orders weren't working. I didn't answer any of them. They had no idea what was coming next. By the next morning, the group chat had turned into a circus. Courtney went from yelling to guilt-tripping in record time. One message called me selfish. The next, she said she'd pray for me. Then she dropped the "you ruined Christmas" card, like that was supposed to undo everything. Aiden was more direct. He told me I needed therapy, and that I was clearly spiraling. I wasn't spiraling. I was finally breathing. Then Mom texted twice. First just, "Can we talk?" Followed by, "Your sister says the phones aren't working." No question mark. Just that flat line of disappointment she always sends when she doesn't want to outright take sides. I didn't respond to anyone. Instead, I sat on my couch with coffee, scrolled through my own messages, and wondered how I let it get this far. I'd been covering their lives in the background for years. I never made a big deal out of it, never posted about it, never even brought it up in conversation. I just paid. I knew Courtney and Aiden were always tight on money. I knew Mom and Dad had their ups and downs with medical bills, so I stepped in quietly, because it felt like the right thing to do. I thought it meant we were family, but the moment I said no to one thing, one overpriced gift for someone who treats me like a servant, suddenly I was the villain. That's what got to me the most. Not the money, not the phone, but how fast the love vanished when the faucet turned off. So, I turned off everything. Netflix gone. Amazon Prime logged them all out. Spotify removed every user except myself. The family phone plan canceled every line but mine. Even the old emergency credit card I gave Mom after Dad's surgery, frozen. She'd used it last week at a wine store, and I'm not even sure she remembers why she was given it in the first place. I didn't send a message, didn't announce it. I just made quiet moves, my version of cleaning house. And then, for the first time in years, I did nothing. No explaining, no fixing, no apologizing, just silence. That silence didn't last long. At 9:12 a.m., Courtney started again. This time, she tried a new angle. You seriously left your niece without a working phone. What kind of aunt are you? Her niece is 6 years old. He does not need a phone. Then Aiden texted something about how I owe it to the family because I had a head start in life. That part actually made me laugh out loud. A head start. I worked 2 jobs through college, while Courtney dropped out after a semester and got engaged to a guy who thought Dogecoin was a retirement plan. Then came the call I didn't expect. My dad. He's usually the quiet one, never takes sides. His role in the family dynamic is mostly to nod and change the channel. But here he was, standing outside my apartment building, calling to be let up. I buzzed him in. He walked in like he was delivering a message he didn't want to carry, said things were getting out of hand, said Courtney was hurt and Aiden was worried about her, that they had a lot going on with the kid, and maybe I could just let this go. Maybe just this once, I could pick up the slack. And then he said, "They're raising a child now, Nancy. You don't understand how hard that is." There was the old argument. Because I didn't marry young. Because I didn't have a baby. Because I bought a condo by myself and drive a car I paid off in cash, I'm automatically the one who has to carry everyone else. I didn't say much, just listened. Dad left thinking maybe I was softening. Maybe I was just tired and would wake up tomorrow and plug everything back in. But as soon as the door shut, I sat down and pulled up the last 3 years of bills and transactions. 3 years. $27,000, give or take, and not one thank you that wasn't followed by another request. I wasn't softening. I was just getting started. By Monday night, the tone shifted. The rage and entitlement dried up. And what replaced it was something I hadn't seen from my family in a long time. Panic. Courtney stopped spamming the group chat. Aiden went quiet. Even Mom hadn't sent anything in hours. I figured they were regrouping, maybe trying to guilt-trip me from another angle. But then I got an unexpected message. It was from my cousin Tasha, who lives 2 states over and only shows up at weddings or funerals. She said Courtney had reached out to her to ask if she could help talk some sense into me. That's when I knew they were scrambling. Courtney never talks to Tasha. I didn't reply. I was curious to see how far they'd take it. Later that night, I got a notification. Aiden was trying to reset the password on the Amazon account. I had already removed his email, but the attempt was enough to make me change everything again and add 2-factor authentication. He was still trying to worm his way back in. I started a new folder on my desktop. Screenshots of texts, call logs, transaction records. I wasn't building a case for anyone else, just for myself. Something I could look back on if I ever started to feel guilty. Then came Tuesday morning. I was at work when Mom called again. I didn't pick up. 10 minutes later, she texted, "I know you're upset, but your sister is dealing with a lot right now. Can't you just help her until things calm down? You're the only one who can. And then, be the bigger person. That's what your father always says you're good at." There it was again, that little phrase they all cling to when they want something. You're the only one who can. Not because I'm kind, not because I'm generous, but because I made it out. Because I worked hard, sacrificed, and built a life they didn't expect from me, and they saw that as a resource, not a result. I didn't reply to her either. I did, however, notice something strange that evening. My dad called again, this time from a different number. He left a voicemail saying Courtney and Aiden were in a bit of a situation. Something about the car being repossessed. They had been using my credit score to lease it. I hadn't co-signed officially, but the dealership had required a co-signer's income verification, and I'd stupidly sent them my pay stub 2 years ago to help them qualify. So when the payments stopped and the dealership came knocking, they called me. That's when it really hit. They weren't just leaning on me. They had built their stability on my back. Every late bill, every luxury they pretended they could afford, every emergency they dodged, it was because of me. I went home, pulled up my bank account, and closed the last tie I had left, an auto payment I'd set up ages ago that covered their internet bill. It was only $74 a month, but it was symbolic, a lifeline they no longer deserved. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Courtney. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. But the next day, she would. And what she said would change everything. By Wednesday, the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was tense. Still no calls, no texts, nothing from Courtney, Aiden, or even Mom, but I knew something was coming. They were never the type to go down without one last dramatic push. I was right. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number while I was in a meeting. I let it go. When I checked my voicemail later, it was Courtney crying. Real crying. Not the dramatic sniffles she used to use when she wanted a refund on something. Her message was short. Please call me back. It's not about the bills. We need help. It's not just us anymore. That last part stuck in my head. I almost didn't call back, but curiosity got the better of me. When she picked up, I barely recognized her voice. She sounded small. She said they'd been evicted. Apparently, Aiden hadn't paid the rent in over 3 months. He was too embarrassed to tell her until the eviction notice was taped to the front door. He'd been spending what little money they had trying to flip sneakers and crypto coins again. They were living in his cousin's basement. The car had been towed, the utilities shut off. Their daughter, my niece, was missing school because they couldn't afford gas or Wi-Fi. And Courtney, for once, wasn't angry. She was desperate. She asked if I could help them get back on their feet just for a few months. Said they'd pay me back. Swore they'd do better. And I almost said yes. I almost let all of it go. The years of insults, the eye rolls, the way she used to mock my job and call it bougie nonsense. I almost believed she was sorry. But then she added, Mom says it's kind of your fault too, since you knew Aiden was unstable with money and still let him depend on you. There it was. Even at rock bottom, somehow I was still to blame. I told her I'd think about it. Then I hung up and didn't call back. That night, I got an email from the elementary school. Apparently, I was still listed as an emergency contact for my niece, and they needed someone to pick her up because Courtney hadn't shown. I left work and drove straight there. My niece was sitting in the office, quiet, with her backpack in her lap. She looked confused when she saw me, but didn't say anything. Just walked out with me, like we did this every day. On the way to my place, she said something that made me almost pull over. Aiden says, We're poor now because you're mad at Mommy. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. I let her stay with me that night, fed her, helped with her homework, and emailed the school to update my number. Courtney called once. I didn't answer. The next day, Mom showed up at my apartment. She didn't even ask how I was doing. Just walked in, looked around, and said, You know, this isn't right. I asked her what wasn't right. Letting a kid sleep in a warm bed? Giving her a stable place to eat? She didn't answer that. She just said, Courtney's your sister. If you let them fall apart now, they might never recover. I asked if she ever said anything like that to Courtney when she was draining my bank account and treating me like a personal assistant. Mom didn't like that. She left after saying, I raised you better than this. That's when I realized they didn't want help. They wanted a reset button. They wanted me to carry the weight again without complaint. But things were different now. Courtney would call again. Aiden would show up at my job with some sob story. Even Dad, quiet as he usually is, would ask me to reconsider, but none of them knew the full truth. While they were busy pointing fingers at me, someone else had reached out quietly, privately. Aiden's other girlfriend, and what she told me was going to flip everything upside down. It was a Thursday night when I got the message. Came through Instagram of all places. A woman named Natalie sent a short DM. "Hey, I think we need to talk. It's about Aiden. I've seen him texting you. I'm not trying to start drama. Just want the truth." I stared at it for a solid minute, then reread it. Texting me? He hadn't messaged me since the phone stunt. But something about the way she wrote it, like she thought I was involved with him, made me curious enough to reply. I gave her my number, and 10 minutes later, we were on the phone. Turns out Natalie had been dating Aiden for over a year. A full year. She had no idea he was still living with Courtney. He told her he was going through a divorce, that his ex was crazy, and that the little girl he posted about sometimes was his niece, not his daughter. He'd even borrowed money from her. I sat there listening, with this slow burn crawling up my spine. I shouldn't have been surprised. Aiden was always slippery, always too charming, too smooth, the kind of guy who dodged accountability with a laugh and a backhanded compliment. But this, while my sister was begging me for help, he was actively dating someone else and spinning a fantasy life behind her back. And suddenly, I didn't feel guilty at all. I asked Natalie if she'd be willing to talk to Courtney. She said she'd think about it. I told her she didn't owe anyone anything, but if she did decide to come forward, I'd support her. The next day, I dropped my niece off at school, then sat in the parking lot. I texted Courtney, "You need to talk to Natalie. Ask Aiden who she is. I'm not saying anything else." She replied, 2 minutes later, "What the hell are you talking about?" That was the last I heard from her until 2 a.m. I woke up to 4 missed calls and 1 voicemail. She was screaming, crying, furious, completely unraveling. She'd confronted Aiden. He didn't deny it. Didn't even try. He packed a bag and left. No apology, no explanation. Just left her and their daughter with nothing but overdue bills and a mountain of lies. Mom called the next morning. Her voice was soft, like it had been wrung out overnight. She said she was staying with Courtney for a few days, helping with the baby, said Courtney was broken, said maybe now I could step in and help since the real problem was gone. But I didn't agree. Because the real problem wasn't just Aiden. It was the entire pattern. Courtney's entitlement, Mom's excuses, the way they always treated my help like a down payment for future guilt. I told her I wouldn't be doing anything more. Not the bills, not the car, not the school fees, not even the rent. Mom went quiet. Then she said, "You're going to abandon your own family over a phone." I almost laughed. A phone? They still didn't get it, but I did. And when they showed up at my door again, all of them, even Dad, with a plan, with apologies, with a list of things they needed, they got their answer. They showed up the following Sunday. Courtney looked like she hadn't slept in days, hair tied back, no makeup, just worn down and hollow. She was holding her daughter's hand. Mom and Dad flanked her. Dad carrying a manila envelope. Mom with a tight smile, like she was trying to pretend this was some casual family visit. I let them in, not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted this part to be final. Courtney went first. She said everything she was supposed to say. That she was sorry. That she was hurt. That she didn't realize how much she'd taken me for granted. That Aiden was a mistake, and she finally saw it. Then she asked for help. Not money, just stability. Said they had found a 2-bedroom rental they could afford with some help on the deposit. Said she wanted to take her daughter back to school regularly. Said she was starting over. Then Mom added that they'd all learned from this. That sometimes families break, but it's never too late to repair things, that I could be part of the solution. Dad handed me the envelope. It was a breakdown of what they needed. Rent deposit, groceries, 1 month of utilities. They even included a note about paying me back in 6 months or less. I set it all on the table and said calmly that I wasn't going to do any of it. Mom's expression dropped instantly. Dad blinked, like maybe he hadn't heard me. Courtney didn't speak at all. She just stared. I said they needed to figure it out themselves, that I had already done my part for years. And the only reason they were standing in my apartment right now, instead of in some shelter or sleeping in a car, was because I took care of things they never even noticed. I told them I didn't hate them. I just didn't care anymore. And that's what shocked them the most. It's easy to fight someone who's angry. Harder when they're done. Mom got mad. Said I was being cruel, that I was letting a child suffer. To make a point, I told her the only point I was making was that I was no longer responsible for a family that never once acted like I was part of it, unless they needed something. Then I opened the door. They left without another word. That was 6 weeks ago. Since then, I've heard through Tasha that Courtney moved into a small rental an hour outside the city. She got a job at a daycare. Aiden tried to come back, but she didn't let him. She blocked his number. Apparently, Mom's still mad at me. So is Dad. They say I changed. Maybe I did. But I don't regret a single thing. Sometimes cutting people off isn't revenge. It's mercy for yourself. And if they ever find their way back to stable, good for them. But they won't find their way back to